Back on Full-Time Devils, Francis Maxwell. I am delighted to be here to discuss Paul Pogba. Pogback! It's finally happened, and my God, was it a long, drawn-out, rigorous process, but we got there in the end. And therefore, we get to do this clip, which is how does Paul Pogba fit into Manchester United's system? Now, whether you disagree or agree with the personnel that I'm putting into the lineup, just that's kind of collateral damage. It's fine. It doesn't matter at the moment. What matters is the system that Jose Mourinho is going to try to run, right? So the first lineup that I'm posing on the screen is a 4-2-3-1, simply because that's Jose Mourinho's go-to. That's what he installed in Chelsea. He has kind of been the master of this formation. And therefore, Paul Pogba, as much as I don't personally think that it will allow for him to go on and play the way that I think he will be most beneficial for Manchester United, it seems like a seamless fit. Putting Pogba into a midfield along someone like a Schneiderlin or a Carrick, where they're the more defensive-minded midfielder, and Paul Pogba can take up that role and push further forward. So the benefits of this system straight away is Pogba's used to playing in a five-man midfield. He has done it at Juventus, and he's used to playing with fellow midfielders, so he might drop a little bit deeper as he did with France, but there was criticisms in Didier Deschamps' camp that he didn't allow for Pogba to play to his full potential, pushing higher up the field. And I think that is valid, considering what I imagine will happen in this system. So, for instance, this system, for me, favours Wayne Rooney. And when you sign someone for £89 million to come in, you shouldn't be worried about whether or not Wayne Rooney can go on and thrive in this system. It should be Paul Pogba, because what Wayne Rooney likes to do when he plays as a number 10, as we see with England as well as he did with Manchester United towards the end of the season, is he likes to check back into this area. And what this will allow, on a positive note, is Pogba to make this overlap and run. But more often than not, Paul Pogba will be looked to try and take the ball in this area where he's got his back to goal, whether he's got all this space in front of him, which he can go forward and utilise his immense athleticism and vision. But I don't think that Paul Pogba is as good in that position as what he has with Juventus in the past been done, is where he's picked up the ball kind of in this area, where he's automatically got in an advanced position where he can utilise his technical ability, his athleticism to drive forward. So Wayne Rooney could be seen as a player that could crowd his space. What I would like to see more in this system is maybe, rather than a Wayne Rooney play consecutively, maybe an Ander Herrera comes in and he kind of checks back into this role, which allows more to be a diamond form of midfield where Paul Pogba can push a little higher up, Martial can stretch them out wide, and Mkhitaryan can be that outlet that can take the ball and come in centrally to support Zlatan and pick it up in this area. That, for me, would be an easy fit. But here's the thing. You don't want something to just be a fit, because that is what Manchester United looked at last year. I talked about it on a clip. Some of you United fans on our channel, TYT Sports, weren't happy because I was saying that mediocre became the new normality at United. And it did, lads. We understand that. It did. We were looking at players coming in that were doing a good job and were showing effort more than anything else. And we were like, that's what we need here at Manchester United. But Manchester United has always encompassed excellence. Paul Pogba is excellent when he's played in the right position. So I look back at Juventus last year. The guy scored 3 goals before the new year. And he was in somewhat decent form. And he was contributing. But I look at the second half of the season when he scored 4 goals in 5 games. And that included goals against Bayern Munich. And that was the run where Juventus really just started to pull away from the pack. And the system that he thrived in it could be taken as a 4-2-3-1, but more often than not, it would look more like a 4-3-3. So this type of formation is where I could see Paul Pogba really getting or I could see Manchester United really getting the most out of Paul Pogba. Now, it's hard to contemplate that Jose Mourinho would play a 4-3-3, but at times when he's going forward, this can easily check back in to a 4-2-3-1, or even come back almost to be like a 5-3-2, especially if you have players that are going to tuck back in. But the reason I'm putting up this formation is because when Paul Pogba is allowed to pick up the ball in further forward areas, he can go on and he can contribute goals. Because the one thing that Manchester United lacked last season was goals from midfield. They like goals in general. But when you buy Zlatan and you have Mkhitaryan, who is an assist machine, you want to try and get goals out of Paul Pogba. You don't sign a player, as I mentioned, for 89 million and fit him into a system that you think, yeah, he's going to do well in there. You want to get the most out of this player. You want this player to go on and be the new Cristiano Ronaldo in whatever position he can possibly play in, because he has the potential. And Jose Mourinho understands that, and he's going to get the most out of him. I look at Pogba in that 4-2-3-1 playing a similar role to assess Fabregas, where, yes, he's contributing with assists and he can have a great season. But when I see him in this position, this is what he played in the latter half of Juventus' season, where he had the likes of Marchisio and Khedira to sit a little bit deeper, give him that stability, give him that safety net that allows him to go further forward and pick up the ball in deeper areas. And at times last season, he would partner with Dybala and he'd almost look like a second striker. I remember against FC Bayern where Pogba was coming in from the left side, cutting onto his right foot because he's very strong with both feet. And Bayern Munich were backtracking because they didn't know what to do with someone with that size, that stature, with feet like ballerina, but with an athleticism of a Greek god coming at them. It's a very scary sight. And the Premier League is a system that's very fast, that they'll try to put a lot of pressure on him. So I would rather him have the pressure put on him in the final third rather than in his own half, where he can't really do much to get further advanced in the game. He'd have to rely so much on his technical ability. Whereas if you get him the ball in the final third, that's your outlet pass. So what I see in this system, and that's why I put personnel in there like Herrera and Sneijderlin, who can sit a little bit deeper, and players like Rashford and Martial, is because Rashford and Martial are going to pull defences wide. They're going to look to try and pull them out in the best way possible, creating this space in here where you get the ball into the likes of Sneijderlin and Herrera, who will automatically shift and it'll become this kind of diamond formation, very similar to what we see with Barcelona. Because when you look at this formation and you look at last season when Marchisio and Khedira were dropping deep, Pogba suddenly had all this space in here. This was his zone. This is where he was picking up the ball. They would find him in this left side of midfield and he would drive forward, whether it be a shot from distance, whether it be linking up with, at that point, a Morata or a Dybala. And in this situation, who else than a Zlatan, who's got the stature to hold the ball up and play off of him. Rooney in the 4-2-3-1 may crowd his space. Other players in the 4-2-3-1 may not allow for Pogba to advance further forward, and he may be looked at very similarly to what he was with Didier Deschamps as more of a box-to-box midfielder that sits back, and he will track back. The guy's got an engine on him. Don't think that he's not going to defend just because he may play in an advanced position. He will defend, and he will fit into that system. He's an intelligent footballer. But to sign a player to go forward and be potentially the world's best midfielder, there is no doubt in my mind that you make the system adhere to him as well. This isn't just an everyday signing. Mkhitaryan can play in a 4-3-3. The reason I put Rashford in there is because he'll tug the touchline and he'll almost play the way Sami Eto'o played for Jose Mourinho at Inter Milan. That's why I brought up that reference in the past when I talked about Jose Mourinho's best system. He knows how to get the best out of players and put them into positions that they might not feel would be their most comfortable, but he knows the game inside out. Pogba showed it at Juventus that he can play more in a more condensed midfield, and he can work in an infrastructure where it's a little tighter. But he also shows that he can thrive when he's given the space to move forward and to cut in from that kind of advanced left side of midfield. And I think when you pay 89 million, you don't want to take any chances. You want to see if you can fit him into the system, and you want to see if you can get the most out of Paul Pogba. But I want to know what you guys think. Of course, we don't know at this moment. There's many moving pieces in there. We haven't even touched on other players in other positions. Mkhitaryan, I have continuously spoke on my platform that Mkhitaryan, I think, could be the signing of the season. As I mentioned, an assist machine, over 14 assists last year in the Bundesliga. The guy knows how to set people up, and I think that going forward, you may look to try and utilise him to the best of your ability, but when you pay 89 million for a player, you want to make sure that you get the most out of his potential. Let us know what you think in the comments on Twitter, Francis_Maxwell. As always, there'll be plenty of tactics videos throughout the season. I'm excited for the new season ahead. I'm sure everyone in Manchester is as well, and who can blame us, because look at the signings, look at the manager. It's all there. All the ingredients are there, and we have a master chef. But can Manchester United get back to success? I'll speak to you guys very soon.
Right then, it is the first Premier League game of the season. Manchester United are back in more ways than one, and I'm joined by a couple of debutants today in their first preview.